use, for example, an electric vehicle or a battery power to replace a diesel generator, you are saving on fuel costs. So there might be a front-end cost, as I was saying before, where it's more expensive to get the technology, but then you are not spending money on acquiring fuel. And depending on how long your production lasts, you can often end up being revenue positive by not having purchased the fuel.
This is not a surprise question, and I'll put it to Anupam and Sophie as well. Quite often, it's useful to have like a sustainability officer. I don't want to liken it to like the COVID safety police that were on every set, and in the case of Singapore, were knocking on our doors being monitored. Is it useful to hire an extra person to just make sure that you're sticking to those goals? Because quite often, I feel in a production, everyone's just running around making things happen on screen. Who is it that just is kindly pointing people in the direction of sustainability? And is it worth having that extra headcount on your team?
It is today. The ideal goal for me is that eventually that won't be necessary, that this will be something that will be fully embedded. I think that's a fully green set is one where everyone is kind of is part of rowing on as part of the crew. Having a sustainability officer right now is very important, but it's also important to remember that no one person can make an entire production green. So that's why it's really important to have that person that has the expertise to kind of come in at the beginning during pre-production and help to establish a green production plan with the crew members. So you have a sustainability expert that's overlaying with the content creation experts and looking at where are the opportunities, how can we do this, and then it becomes the production crew's plan. And during the run of show, during the actual principal photography, the sustainability expert is just there as a support, as someone that can help to course correct, to do a little bit more research where there's to help them where there might be some obstacles. But it's really in that preparation plan, a phase where the expertise is required. The rest of it is then you're simply implementing your production plan that you have co-created, and then at the end, the sustainability consultants can help to assess the carbon footprint and provide a wrap report about what was achieved, what impact was had, and what are some potential opportunities for improvement in the future. But I'll throw it to Anu and Sophie as well.
So I'm going to bring Anupam and Sophie into the conversation, but I do want to say that we will talk about measurement tools after we've talked to Anupam and Sophie about what they're trying to do with India GreenSet. Yes, based in India, but covering the region. So maybe I'll ask Anupama first. Why India GreenSet?
So first of all, hello everyone. And Janine, thank you so much for having this workshop. It's also interesting that this hotel is sustainable. I've quickly taken that green book and picked it up for a reference. Basically, India GreenSet, because I'll have to go back a little bit. I've been part of the entertainment industry for like 2.5 decades in India, and I sort of moved away from that and went into more independent production and impact. And that happened largely because I met Sophie, and Sophie introduced me to impact. And the whole concept of, the thing is that we have access to some of the largest platforms, the biggest reach, and we create content that can inspire, that can change habits and change minds. And that was what really excited me. I always believed in the power of what we do. And so I wanted to sort of move into less mainstream, but at the same time try and see if I could straddle both to be able to achieve that change. So that's what I've been doing for the past 7 years. And because Sophie also has a similar sort of background, we kind of decided to get together and move into climate change and nature, because all of us really feel that what's happening in the environment around us, it's so important for us to sort of step in and initiate that. And it's a nascent industry, you know, so all of us are learning. But the whole idea was to bring in our expertise in production and programming and our passion for nature and conservation and combine the two, and that's how we started India Green Set.
What is India Green Set's goal?
Our goal really, so the long-term goal is for us to be able to enable sustainability cells in all companies and to be able to train and to sort of workshop, and that's why we partnered with Green Spark Group, Andrew and Zina, because they have been holding workshops and forums which they take to production houses and they take to corporate companies and sort of help sensitize people to sustainability and what it means, what, you know, sort of initiate them into this process. So that's the first step. And eventually we want to be able to sort of empower sustainability cells in companies where people have their own sort of employees within the company who drive this forward. And the whole idea for us is that we are approaching the larger companies who will sort of, in a sense, mandate and empower the production houses to implement sustainability on ground. So that's really what we're looking at.
Is there a danger that the indie production industry, as we heard in the last 2 days, is really squeezed? Somebody likened to us, we're squeezed, we're going to be dust soon, and we'll put ourselves in little vials in museums. Is there a danger that, yes, big corporations and broadcasters and platforms buy into this, and then just insist that independent producers do it without the support systems, without possibly the extra cost to buy electric vehicles? Because actually when some of the platforms don't, they just throw a budget. This is your budget, make it happen. And actually the production house has asked for X, and they take 30% off and said, no, we've only got Y.
Yes, I attended the forum yesterday, the conversation, and it's actually the same in India. It's the same, I think, in most places. You know, to be fair, there was a time when, and I was part of a production company, so I was running Fremantle for a while in India, and digital had just sort of started creeping in, and we would be told that while you're producing your show, we are going to send in our crew to sort of cover the digital aspect of it, and we were like, how is that going to, like, that's going to interfere with our production, and how are we going to manage it, and all of that. But now it's become standard practice, right? It's, in fact, it's necessary. So sustainability is inevitable. It's going to become standard practice, and whatever we face right now is going to be teething issues. And they're bound to happen. And the reason why we are not approaching production houses directly at this stage, but the larger companies who will sort of pave the way for sustainability practices to be adopted. That's the reason why we're doing it, because when either they will sort of, one, provide a budget for sustainability, two, they are the ones who will be able to invest in vans that are powered by solar panels, in vanity vans that are powered by solar panels, battery generated, you know, LED lighting, all of that. They are the ones who are going to eventually create the infrastructure for sustainability. And so, if they're going to do that, then I think somewhere the production houses will also have to step in. And honestly, there are some simple things like Andrew mentioned, waste reduction. It's something that we do in any case. It's just about segregation of waste and recycling and reuse. So it's a mindset change. Once that happens, I think we will find ourselves just sort of doing this on a regular basis.
I'd like to ask Sophie, what do you think the biggest challenge is going to be here?
Thank you, Janine, for inviting us and holding this rather critical conversation as this time. I think it's very important that you brought it in. Thank you. Thank you, Contadesia, for bearing with us on this subject, which is very important and close to our heart. I feel at the most, we're going to face a lot of, I mean, since it's, it's Asia, companies around the world, I mean the companies, the big production houses and the big studios have committed to reducing their carbon emissions and going neutral by between 2022 to 2050. Countries have taken that decision, at least by 2070, India has taken that decision to be carbon neutral. So there is a path that is people are moving on. And what we actually, when we started India Green Cell, is actually to explore the fact is how is that translating to the East. When we met Andrew and Zena from GreenSpark, we saw that things were moving in the north, in North America, and in those parts of the regions. There are sustainable productions taking place in a very process-driven, very crafted, very systematic form. But Asia, I mean, how is that looking like in Asia? If this is the commitment that's been taken, then we wanted to be holding the studios responsible for the fact that this commitment has been taken. How is it looking like in the global south? So there is going to be, we don't have an infrastructure that can support a system of sustainability. I don't think we have enough of generators, battery operated generators, or solar powered makeup plants, or any of that, and that's going to take time to come in. We don't have incentives. It's not like we have an award system that happens best director, best actor, best writer, and best sustainability production. You know, we don't have those incentives.
Okay, next year we're going to introduce one. Sorry, we don't.
Yes,
and that's a
yes.
big, I just realized there's a big hole in our agenda. So thank you. Next year.
Yes, please. And there's no penalty which says that if you do not emit this much of carbon, or if you have not having a sustainability plan, then you don't have like a government penalty or any policy penalty that says that, okay, when we tax this much more. You know, there's no penalty or incentives in place, and that's, I feel, also something that should be, that we are going to be facing. If it's there, but I think easier, then, like I said, that we don't have a system that can support this. You know, recycling, yes, because we are naturally we recycle and we reuse and we repurpose, and waste management is how we are looking at sustainability right now in terms of where the waste is going and what kind of diversion waste, garbage diversion plan do we have. But it's ending there. Carbon, I mean, that whole system has to come to place. And with GreenSpark Group, who have already created those systems and have seen it functioning and have been putting it into practice, we are bringing that learning, that training, that education into the productions that we hope to train and educate and instill that climate literacy and instill that passion and instill that care. So everybody feels like taking the same learning home from a shoot, and it permeates across like that. I feel that is, various stakeholders come into it. Talent comes into it. All of that comes into it.
Andrew's applauding you, and so am I. I'll just break in here a little bit. The Continental Asia Summit works with the Thailand Convention and Exhibition Bureau, and they gave us, it's a good relationship, but in order to work with them this year, we had to sign, I'll call it a green paper, so we had to sign like a commitment of 10 things in order to get them on board. So, and once you put your signature to a piece of paper, you're like, oh, I'm going to have to tell them, I tick this, I tick this, I tick this. So there's that accountability to them in order to justify what they gave us. So I think that also just is like a subtle thing. You sign something and then I have to do it now. So I feel I feel pressured to do it, but now. So we do have 2 case studies. I'll stop rabbiting on. But we do have 2 case studies. Andrew's going to present them. The first is Extrapolations, which was filmed in New York and India. I'll throw to Andrew.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so Extrapolations was produced by Apple TV and Media Res, and as you mentioned, was filmed in New York and in India. And again, it was kind of what I was saying earlier. It was about sitting down with, and key to this is producers, getting the producers embedded and involved in this, and caring about this is really key, because they really help to send that signal down to the rest of the department heads and to the crew. So sitting down with the producers and with the department heads to put together a green action plan. What does it look like for each department? Each department will use materials and use their energy differently, so it's really important to identify solutions and empower them to make the sustainable choices, and that's what we did with extrapolations. As I was saying before, what does that look like in catering? What does that look like for the set design and the build? If you're thinking about this right at the beginning with the set design, then you're thinking about the end use at the front end. So if I'm building something, what's going to happen to it at the end? So I'm making choices that I have less to manage, or that I can deconstruct it in a way that I can then donate it or reuse it for other productions. So those are the kinds of planning that was done. Transportation, how do we make sure that we are going to certain locations only a set number of times so we can reduce the amount of transportation that's required? Do we have the right relationships with the right vendors? So the people who are going to come to collect our waste, are they helping us to sort it and to weigh it and telling us how much of it is being diverted to composting, to recycling, and how much is actually being either incinerated or landfilled, and providing that information back to us so that we can learn, are we managing our waste effectively? They reduced their generator use by, so in this case it was a big budget production, so they employed electric vehicles and some solar energy where it was feasible. They didn't eliminate diesel generator use, and that's an important thing to say. We don't have to achieve perfection whenever we're doing this. We have to start and evolve, and any kind of diminishment or reduction is a step forward, and that's something to be celebrated and championed. I really want to demystify the idea that we're looking for perfection and that productions need to achieve everything. Look at what's feasible and learn. So these are the kinds of things that were done in New York, and then when they were moving to India, they filmed in December of 2022 in the Maharashtra state. What they looked like, because we'd set up a green action plan, they made sure that they hired local as much as possible so they wouldn't have to transport cast and crew. They sent out green memos to the crew, alerting them that this is a sustainable production and to choose sustainable options when possible. Training was provided at the front end, so whenever crew were onboarded, there was a climate and carbon and sustainable production literacy training was provided, as Sophie mentioned earlier. The caterer provided meals in steel reusable containers that were then sent back each day and washed and brought back to set for the following day. So there was no waste coming from single-use plates and cutlery and so on. There was a water filter in the production office, but they also had no plastic water bottles on set, so they brought large water bins that they were able to use and gave everyone reusable bottles to fill. And they carpooled to their locations, and they were minimizing their printing. Going paperless is a great opportunity if you can, but if not, just being conscientious of how much printing you're doing. There's a lot of free tools out there for script and for shots and so on that you can use instead of having to print on paper. They also had a no idling policy. They actually managed to use the budget to rent e-scooters and rickshaws and background vehicles in India. And most of the wardrobe came from reuse centers, so they were rented or purchased from secondhand sources to reduce the carbon footprint. And maybe the final thing, because I don't want to kind of go on too much, is that they also avoided packed meals and had no red meat as part of their catering. So those things all help to reduce their carbon emissions and their material emissions, but what's importantly, that they were able to then track it, because we identified who, as part of the crew, needs to track, okay, how much fuel are we buying? What kind of waste is coming in and out? What is our accommodation? who is traveling from where to where, and you provide that information back to people like GreenSpark Group or to India Green Set, and they use that to then set together a material and carbon footprint analysis for the production. And that's what was done, and then that's submitted as a report. I can't give specific emissions reductions for this production because we're under an NDA, but just kind of giving you a little bit of the best practices that were used on extrapolations.
When you said no